we're going to look ahead into the year, quite fitting for first webinar of the year. We'd look ahead to 2026 and try to see what's on the horizon for machine vision and see what are the trends to look out for. Obviously, where we have some expertise. To give you some context about Zetamotion, we are a deep tech company. We have been specializing in AI quality control for the last 5 years or so, even longer. And yeah, we can dive straight into it. Kind of a bit of a recap on some of the last webinars and towards the end of last year. Basically, we went over some of the capabilities with AI inspection and machine vision. A lot of people put it all together into defect detection, but that can be broken down into a lot of different categories, a lot of different applications. And these were just an overview of some of those applications, from component verification to defect detection to counting and combining a series of those applications into what you can call conditional logic in your machine vision applications. And we spoke a lot about the promise of AI in quality control, and that promise kind of, it promises a lot for your production line in terms of optimizing processes, saving costs, reducing waste, freeing up labor. It seems like a great place to start for automation, and it seems like you can get a lot of ROI when implementing AI for QC. But as we discussed, if you've tried to implement AI on your production line and tried to push it past maybe a pilot phase or try to scale it to full production or multiple production lines, you would have run into a bit of a reality check, which may have looked a little bit more like this a lot of the time. And you will know that it can cause a lot of headaches, and you get a lot of these off-the-shelf solutions that are out there that really advertise machine vision in general to manufacturers as being super easy, being a straightforward setup, being something that's really quick and simple to do. But a lot of the time in these three areas, data, manpower, and time, you're going to face a lot of challenges in implementations, and it can cause you a lot of headaches. And some of the key focus that we'll be focusing on in the trends for 2026 as we look forward will be a lot to do with this data side of things, and a lot of applications around solving this data bottleneck. And that brings us to kind of like a domino effect, solving the bottlenecks, because a lot of stuff gets halted at this data phase, as you know, with AI training and trying to get your models to work.
Just briefly, Mike, if I may, and also for the latecomers, please feel absolutely free to jump in with questions or comments at any time. And what Mike just outlined is really something that we see quite a bit, right? Probably you're here because you want to be in Paradise Wonderland as well. You probably might be interested in how to achieve promise as well, but getting there is indeed quite difficult. And one term that we have started to use quite a bit on the previous slide is research hell, right? Maybe that's something that some might be familiar with as well. You end up in the reality where the project is more like a research project rather than actually something that's truly production ready and producing the kind of results that you're looking for. So if you have any of the such stories to share, I think you can also submit things anonymously. So don't worry if you want to share something without actually sharing where this is coming from. Always keen to hear more interesting case studies, stories, and so on. So please feel free to use the chat functions and Q&A functions and so on. Right, back to you, Mike.
Yeah, going hand in hand with those bottlenecks, we know that areas where it's been particularly hard to implement AI and machine vision in the past has been these three main areas. So limited data availability, non-uniform or noisy products, and high numbers of variations. So if you want to scale to a proper production environment, generally high numbers of variations are always going to present themselves. You might not have data available for all defect types or all scenarios to train your machine vision models. And so these types of areas are where it's kind of struggled in the past, because you can't really scale something that takes months to deploy for even one product to a full production environment. And as Will just said, take it out of that kind of research stage and out of that pilot stage where you're limiting what products can actually go through the system and what you can use the system for. You struggle to take it out of that and scale it to your entire production line. And just the nature of manufacturing and production lines in general, not everything is going to be perfect. Not everything is going to be a lab environment where you have products coming down the line in the exact same orientation or looking the exact same every time. You might have multiple product types per line. There's a lot of these situations made it hard to scale AI with your production line. And to kind of dive into maybe an example so you get more of an idea of what is meant by this. There are some people on the call that are a part of maybe metrology providers or AI providers themselves, so they understand this a lot. Manufacturers maybe don't understand this so much when looking for solutions to implement AI for quality control. But essentially, if you have a particular product on a production line that you wish to deploy machine vision for to do what your quality inspector does, and you want to try automate quality inspection, you are going to have to train and teach that system what to look out for. And we've spoken to manufacturers who have more than, say, 30 to 40 different defect parameters that they're looking out for. And that doesn't even include stuff like component verification or just measurements of the products themselves. But just in defect types, you need to collect so many samples of those defect types just to train the system what that type of defect is, particularly if it's needed for you to classify that defect type in your inspection system. So if you're wanting your machine vision solution to tell you what type of defect it's spotted on your production line as your products come through, you're going to need to train it on hundreds of examples and overall probably thousands of examples of those defect types to get reliable outputs in production.
What's something to note here, perhaps briefly, Mike, is it's not uncommon to find tools that you can download or solutions that you can even try out for free or have these kind of DIY packages. Sometimes stating you can get started with very few, right? Yes, you can. You only need 10 or 20 or 30 to get started. And that's actually true, but it's a bit of it's almost like a little trap, because yes, you can get started, but are you going to achieve what you really want to achieve? And that's where the problem comes in. And that's exactly where you quickly end in that research hell, because quite often a complaint that we hear from engineers who are trying to apply this and trying to make machine vision work and happen is that they say, yes, we got started on what we had available. And we did achieve something, but the accuracy tended to plateau somewhere around 80 to 85%. And to push beyond that, actually, we had to spend so much time on collecting more data, and that wasn't easy because our defects are not that frequent. So we had to wait until we had enough. And that's why we put a more realistic 100 plus for each type if you really want to get to a level of accuracy that you're looking for.
Yeah, and I think the scale is even expands itself even more as you start looking across the different variants. You can't just train the model once and expect it to understand how these defects present themselves on various or different variations of your product. And so that's where the scalability problem comes in as well, because you might be sold on the application as it applies to one of your products. It might be working really well, and you invest a lot to expand it and to onboard new products or try get it working across all your lines. And you end up with this problem where you just start repeating the process over and over again. And that's where the manpower and time starts to really get exponentially more needy to get it to work. And yeah, so what brought us to this webinar and the topic leading into 2026 is how can we address and solve these bottlenecks? And we've kind of looked at the trends for 2026. And there's a lot happening, particularly in the AI space, not just in manufacturing, but in general. There's a lot of talk of an AI bubble. There's a lot of speculation about what's the next big thing, where the hype is going for AI. And some of the key trends in manufacturing specifically is kind of these agentic systems being brought into manufacturing environments to kind of self-train or optimize themselves as they experience the manufacturing environment. Also, new ways to kind of process image data to train models to get more accurate, reliable results in your automated inspection solutions. There's, like I said, many of the topics addressing the data bottleneck. There's a lot of new innovations in synthetic data to kind of reduce the need for those many samples of defect types to train your AI models. There's also now the possibility with the development of chips and making it easier for manufacturers to kind of have their own servers on-prem. You can have this edge AI and edge inference. So when you're running inspection, you don't have to rely on cloud connections and like cybersecurity problems or data security problems. There is also a lot to do with this human-centric collaboration and the physical AI and robotics, how those are developing, kind of fully automating production lines with like humanoid robots. There's a lot of research going into that, a lot of funding going into that. Yeah, I think a lot of these trends, there's some statistics as well for these trends. A lot of manufacturers are exploring automation, exploring AI, trying to implement it, trying to figure out how they can take advantage of all this research and all these new things being released every month. A lot of them want to, but a lot of them aren't really ready to adopt AI. And similar to how we said before, with this kind of promise reality check pair, a lot of people are excited to adopt AI, but they're not quite ready to adopt it, or they don't have the infrastructure or the expertise to kind of adopt it correctly and reliably. And that's reflected in some of these statistics here.
Yeah, or they have been burned by previous experience. There was the 2025 MIT report on generative AI in the industry. Industrial setting was very instructive in that sense. If I remember the statistics correctly, I think it was 95% of the pilots that were run in this space failed. they didn't produce the outcomes that that were intended. And of course, we try not to be too negative here, but it's worth pointing this out, because everyone sees the promise, but making it work can be quite troublesome. And usually it does have to do with the difficulty of getting the right data ready to make it happen, right? to have the time and the manpower to get the data ready. So it's all interconnected. But yeah, we're not quite there yet. But everyone is working on improving the pathway there to make it easier to arrive there. And yeah, you will see some of that where we fit into that puzzle soon as well. But yeah. Back to you, Mike.
Yeah, so two of those areas that I said earlier that are kind of our expertise, and seem to be a big trend at the moment. A lot of innovation happening in the synthetic data space. Like I said previously, what synthetic data is kind of an application to overcome this rare defect type scenarios or limited data availability scenarios, where you need to train an AI model or an inspection model, but you don't have enough data, or it's very expensive to reproduce defects, or you can't quite collect that data. You don't have enough manpower to collect that data to train your AI model, or just you have like outlier defect types that you don't get very often, that you need the inspection solution to be able to detect. Synthetic data can kind of come in and supplement your data collection. There's lots of different ways to approach it, which we'll get into in a bit. But also, like I said before, edge AI is a big topic as well. So running it on-prem without the need for cloud connections, that's also a big topic. And these kind of go hand in hand, because there are a lot of synthetic data solutions that may require you to have a cloud connection and run it off-prem. And that obviously is a concern for many manufacturers as well. So like, I think for 2026, a lot of this on-prem stuff will go hand in hand with synthetic data generation. And the trends and the timelines for synthetic data applications, or how it's kind of been done in the past. There was like the original old ways of doing synthetic data, which was just simply data augmentation. So you can imagine like having a few images of a defect type and just somehow manipulating those images in the training step for your AI models. So whether you're flipping or rotating images or manipulating the lighting on those images to make them all look slightly different, to then train the model to detect, or to just like increase your data points to train the model. Or for example, using something easy to understand is using something like Photoshop to just like paint defects onto images, onto clean surface images. That was also a common trend. And that kind of grew into 3D rendering and simulation. So this is still a popular trend now, and how to make this effective and make this quicker. But essentially, you can create digital twins of your production line or your production environment and your product. And you can, instead of having the expensive approach of reproducing those defects on your actual physical products and creating waste, you can create those defects in a virtual environment and render images of those products with the exact same setup as your cameras or your sensors on your line in real life to train your inspection models. And that proved to be quite effective, but obviously still requires a lot of time, a lot of investment to get this set up. And even rendering images can be time costly. And that kind of brought the developments to generative AI. And you've seen over the last 2-3 years with applications like ChatGPT and Gemini. Image generation has become very popular. And I think for 2026 and recently over the last, say, 6 months or so, they've become really, really good. And it's just a matter of figuring out how to fine tune these models to make reliable outputs. Like previous speculation came a lot around the reliability of outputs. You can't really predict what the models are going to output, but with a lot of fine tuning, a lot of understanding of how models work, you can get reliable outputs. And this area is actually somewhere we've focused a lot, and that kind of brings us to ZELIA, which we said we'll give an overview for in this webinar, and that is a lot to do with generative AI and a lot to do with synthetic data. And ZELIA is what we like to call our end-to-end learning and inspection assistant. And we're aiming to tackle this data and time bottleneck, as well as this manpower bottleneck, to make it easier to deploy machine vision applications and make it easier to train AI inspection models with a very limited amount of data and a limited amount of AI expertise. Will, if you want to expand on that and just kind of introduce the thinking behind ZELIA.
Yes. So that's why you saw me clicking the trumpet here, right? So if we've been monitoring our LinkedIn a bit, you will see that we've basically just launched a soft launch. So we're soft launching ZELIA, which is the acronym, right? It took us some time to find as well, but ZELIA is really, well, I mean, obviously we don't want to exaggerate, but at the same time, totally over exaggerate. What we're trying to achieve here is more or less a GPT moment in the machine vision space, in particular, obviously in the inspection space, but technically it goes beyond it. So this entire process that previously is extremely tedious of collecting the data, curating the data, labeling the data, doing the manual fine-tuning on the model training, the parameter setting, a lot of this, right, is extremely time-consuming, is extremely consuming in terms of work hours and expertise. A lot of people end up hiring whole teams of AI experts to get this kind of thing done. And what we're trying to achieve here with ZELIA is to completely democratize this. So essentially anyone who has some vision sensor, something that takes in visual data, can work with ZELIA, either the actual chatbot version or just the logic and the automated pipeline behind it to arrive at a very high-powered, high-accuracy inspection solution without the need of any of that expertise. Obviously, you should still have control. So if you do want to turn the fine dials and knobs, you can. But the idea is to have a solution that really dramatically cuts down on all of these headache-producing parameters and parts of making machine vision possible. So for those of you, I don't know how old the crowd is that is here in the viewers, but I like to call it the Star Trek solution, right? So instead of having to do the tedious uploading of all of these things, you should imagine working with ZELIA as if you're walking up to the Star Wars computer and you go, hey, computer, I want to inspect this mouse for quality parameters. And then the computer responds and says, cool, okay, let's go. What do you want me to inspect? And you say, yeah, so I'm looking for scratches. They should be this and this size. And computer will say, yep, can you show me 1 or 2 examples of that? And you show 1 or 2 examples. And it will return to you and say, okay, I think I got it. Can you just verify that I have understood what you're looking for? Verify. And over the course of a quick conversation, essentially, the computer works as if it was a human counterpart, learns about your product, about your defects, about your QC parameters, not just defects, but also measurements or whatever it might be, and then generates the solution for you. And that solution comes in the form of fully trained models, which then in turn can be plugged into either our flagship Spectron platform that does all of the inspection, or you can use it in your own platform, in your own solution, whatever you have. But that's the idea about ZELIA, and that's what you will see us go on and on about on LinkedIn over the course of the next weeks. What can be done with this, right? And if you're keen to try ZELIA out, by the way, do feel free to reach out to us during this call or after this webinar, and we'd be happy to give you a first look trial access, and you can play around with her yourself. But yeah, we're very proud. So I'm having trouble stopping talking about it because we're very proud of ZELIA. But in the interest of time, I shall stop and I'll hand it over to you, Mike, and hopefully we still have some time for Q&A afterwards. But yeah, very happy, very proud. One more round of these little trumpets here.
Yeah, I'll jump into how it works. You just outlined it a bit, gave it a bit of an overview. But as you said, essentially describing your inspection challenge, sharing as little as 5 sample images. You could share 1 sample image, just depends how accurate you want the output to be. But we recommend 5 to 10 sample images. And ZELIA is going to go off, learn characteristics and properties of your materials, and be able to generate fully curated synthetic datasets to then train an AI inspection model to detect some sort of defect type on your production line, or to make the automated quality inspection solution actually work on your line. So how it works, step by step, as Will said, there's 2 different types of interfaces. So this is the step-by-step interface. If you're getting a bit tired of chatbots with ChatGPT and Gemini all the time, you can do the step-by-step, or if you need a little bit more guidance, there is a chat version. And you start by just uploading 5 clean sample images. So these are the MVTech datasets. So let's say you had sample images of a fabric or carpet in this case that you want to inspect as it comes through the line. You upload those, it trains and creates a fully curated synthetic dataset for clean sample images. So in this case, it will generate 1,000 variations of that surface. And you can go through and verify that what it's created matches your product type, or matches the variations that may exist of your product type, and matches the lighting conditions in which your inspection environment is running, or where your sensors are capturing the products. Then once you're happy with the clean synthetic data set, you just upload, again, 5 defect samples. So examples of the defect type you want to inspect. There is an optional extra step where you, well, we recommend for accuracy, you just outline on these 5 samples where the defect is on the image, just to point out what you're actually focusing on and what you want to reproduce. And from just these 5 samples with your highlighted defect type, it's going to go off and generate, again, fully curated synthetic data set of your defective samples. So you can see here, eliminating the need for labeling as well. You don't need to go through and label the generated defect types. But obviously, you need to verify that what its output is correct. So you can see in this case, at the end of this GIF here, the mask is not 100% correct. So you can obviously remove that. But we have accounted for that by giving you a lot more variations than what you may actually need to get a reliable model. So we're generating 1,000 variations each time, and you can keep however many you need, keep the high quality generations. But you can see here, they all fit the type of defect that you're wanting to detect, in this case, a hole or some sort of pinhole on the fabric. Then once it has the clean data set and the defective data set, it's going to train a detection model. And this training step is very quick. This is the quickest step of the whole process. So this step takes as little as 30 minutes, where the previous steps, say generating the synthetic data sets, can take up to about 2 hours in total. But once you have a trained detection model, you can go and verify that detection model by giving it some test samples, if you have, to test whether it can identify your defect types. And if you're not too happy with the results, you can go back and try regenerate the synthetic data set, or just check the samples again and then retrain the model. But yeah, you output it with a detection model, and all these steps can be done in as little as 6 to 8 hours. But obviously with the verification steps dependent on you, if you want to be super thorough, you can still get a model out in under 24 hours. And it's a fully reliable detection model. So just an overview.
And some of the time depends also on what hardware you're using. So the frame of reference here is like an NVIDIA 5080, which is a decent card, but it's also not the fastest one out there. So the faster you go, the quicker also the training. But the point is, this means you can do all of this either on our cloud, or you could also implement the entire pipeline. You can implement your own ZELIA instance on your own premises, not a problem. So we would be completely out of the picture if you have, and we see that quite a bit, right? Data that shouldn't leave the facility. Then we just set things up for you, and you could do everything you want on your end autonomously, and still arrive at very high capacity models or high capability models. And what you just saw is the more involved version. So this could even be more streamlined, depending on your requirements. But yeah, that's the idea. So definitely under 24 hours, and can be quite quick indeed.
Yeah, and if you do check out the webpage here, you will see the demos of 2 different versions. So if you want to see the quicker kind of chat version that's a little bit less involved, you can check that one out. And that also has the step-by-step version that I just showed on the website there as well. I do realize that there's only about 8 minutes left, so maybe we stop for a bit and see if there are any questions that anyone wants to ask. Please fire away. You can check the activities panel in the bottom right of your screen, as I showed at the beginning. And yeah, just submit your questions and we'll watch out for those, answer them as they come through. But also, if you do check out the webpage, there is a form at the bottom where, if you want to, as Will said, we want to get people to start demoing this and testing it out. We want to actually get it in some production environments. We want to make a robust solution that is going to work for everyone. So please do get in touch so we can set up an instance for you to test out. Even if you're just interested and you don't have a data set maybe that you want to train on, we can provide you with a data set to test out, just so you can get a hands-on experience with the full application workload.
Yeah, the more people we have trying, the better. But to be quick, because we are working with some resource allocation set up here. So the longer or the longer you wait, the further up you might be in the queue for us to set you up with an account to try. But we are definitely very keen to get as many use cases and as many feedbacks in this early phase, especially, so we can really fine-tune ZELIA to be exactly what does the most good for everyone, essentially. Right, Mike, perhaps you can go one more time to the instruction how to submit questions. It's on the bottom right. You have to go to the Q&A and then ask a question, or you can also make use of the chat, I believe.
Sorry, I've just received an email from one of our viewers that they cannot ask questions because they're set or like blocked as viewers only. So if we can try to, yeah.
Interesting. This is what happens, you know. Google changes things, and then it becomes more difficult. But I do see questions here. I have okay. Oh, maybe something went wrong for them. I don't know. There's definitely questions coming in. So first one here from Ian. How does the system cope with more complex geometry? Yeah, good question. It's much easier to deal with 2D or 2.5D, but in principle, ZELIA is capable of dealing with 3D as well. We're still fine-tuning some of the rough edges there, but we can do a lot of geometry reconstruction even from 2D images that you provide. So rather than having to receive even any CAD models or point cloud data or anything of that sort, you can essentially already build a solution with ZELIA just using the standard images that you have from different angles. That's sufficient for us to do the reconstruction and build an inspection solution. But it might be a bit more involved. It might indeed take a bit longer than for 2D. We're still working on this at full speed to make it easier and faster still. But if you do have CAD models for it, that tremendously speeds up the process, makes things easier. All right, there's another one. In the verified generated data set, what is required of my quality team? How many minutes, hours does a human need to spend checking ZELIA synthetic data before the training starts? Yeah, so generally, you should look at about 1,000 images. I know that sounds like a lot, but if you think of it as swiping through pictures on your social media, it's quite quick. And what you see here, for example, is the overview, and it's really following a very intuitive approach. So you should not take more than, let's say, an hour to check these, the verification of, let's say, the generated defects. Probably quicker, but yeah, something in that ballpark, right? You just go one by one, and all you have to say is, yep, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. So as quick as the human can assess it, and usually the people looking at this have a very good grasp of what they're looking at, this can be done very quickly. That's also what we've seen in first early feedback.
That flows over to the next question that I see there, which we've spoken about a lot in previous webinars, is how do you overcome the challenge of having several operators who all have slightly different opinions of what is an acceptable defect-free product? I've come across this issue several times, particularly with large medical technology companies. I know you know a lot about this, Bill.
Oh, that's a fantastic one. In one of our previous webinars, we called this the defect consensus problem, and we have a graphic there where you have all of the different involved parties fighting with each other and grabbing each other's nose and fighting over the highly philosophical question of where does the bubble begin, right? Because when you have a bubble and it is sticking out of the surface, right? Where do you start measuring? Do you start measuring here? Do you start measuring right at the very edge? Depending on where you measure, the circumference of your bubble might be within specs or without specs, and so on. So there's a lot of difficulty there. The role we take in this is will be the neutral arbiter, but not as in someone who provides the ultimate ground truth, but rather or what you can do with AI and with machine vision is you can provide conditions that always follow the same parameters, which means humans might look at it sometimes slightly more closely, slightly further away, or they might hold the light source slightly differently, and so on. In an automated inspection station, the conditions will always be exactly the same, which means if you look at the results together, you can make use of what we call our defect consensus tool, which means when you have a representative sample set of products, you can review the various parameters, how they present themselves in the machine, and then you can reach a consensus. So all of the involved parties discuss and review until they all agree, okay, whenever it presents itself in this way, this is how we're going to measure it, and this is how we're going to define it. And once that is set, that is what the system is going to report. Right? So you have that neutral arbiter in between.
And also to expand on that and bring it back to like the trends for 2026, this self-optimization and agentic AI step is something that can help a lot with that. For example, once you've plugged the detection model that is output into an actual platform where you can monitor statistics or check the reports, something that we've tried to build into our Spectron platform is a feedback loop and the self-optimization loop. So human inspectors on the line, if they see that the detection model maybe picked up something that they disagree with, they can input this into the system for it to feedback, which is what we call human in the loop feedback, to then self-improve the system. And this defect consensus is something that can also be facilitated in these actual platforms.
Indeed. And then I see another question here. What's the maximum vision window for inspection? That really depends. So we personally, our focus is more on the software than on the hardware. When we are working on a B2B mode, we do help design the hardware as well. And in that case, if you have a product that is much bigger, it just means we need to tie together various vision streams. So if you have something that is, we're currently, for example, about to kick off a project with a manufacturer of very large glass panels. So the biggest one is 4.8 meters wide. And that means we will have to string together 6 or 8 cameras and then combine the streams and analyze that. So that's doable. The constraints are more on the hardware. So as long as there's hardware that can cover it, it's doable, right? It becomes more difficult on the macroscopic level, really. On the microscopic, on the macroscopic scale, you just have to add more hardware and more compute, and you can deal with it. Microscopic, when you get to real difficult issues with optics and focal points and so on, that's where it becomes a bit more difficult.
That's also a trend that's being addressed this year. It's all these hyperspectral imaging or 3D cameras that you see. A lot of hardware is being innovated to solve those kinds of problems as well. Because if a human struggles to see it, obviously your cameras are going to struggle as well, and your AI model is going to struggle too. So that's being solved.
Yeah, there's some really cool stuff also, improving the ability to capture at extremely high speeds. So very, very keen to see what the the hardware innovators, our colleagues are working on, and then we will just plug right into that. That's what we like to do. We'll just ride on their bandwagon of hardware innovation, and we'll do the software behind the scene.
I think we've overshot a little bit. So
quite a bit. If there's any questions that you didn't get to ask, please do feel free to reach out. Like we said earlier, if you want to try out ZELIA, let us know. And otherwise, thank you very much for joining us today, and see you on the next one.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.